This episode of the Beauty by ABIG podcast is brought to you by Osmosis Skincare. Hello and welcome to the Beauty by ABIG podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Here, we are strengthening and unifying the industry through representation, innovation, and education. This is a platform created and dedicated to the aesthetic and beauty industry, valuing unity and advancement. We serve to represent, support, and inspire you by connecting you with industry experts, expanding your knowledge through educational pieces, and bringing you the latest industry news. This is Beauty by ABIG. I'm your host, Stephanie Miller, and today's guest is Dr. Ben Johnson from Osmosis Skincare. Founder and formulator Dr. Ben Johnson is a physician, inventor, and entrepreneur who has spent the last 25 years dedicated to solving some of the world's most challenging skin and health conditions. He holds multiple patents relating to skincare and wellness as a result of his unparalleled research and philosophies pertaining to the skin-body connection. Dr. Ben is passionate about treating skin from within. He has researched the etiology of skin conditions and how they affect the whole body and how to treat them holistically. Dr. Johnson founded Osmosis Beauty with a revolutionary approach that is changing the direction of skincare away from excessive exfoliation and renewing focus on dermal remodeling, barrier and DNA repair, and detoxification. He has found that the skin and body are capable of healing themselves using the proper tools and the removal of toxic influences. Here to discuss the origins of common skin conditions and how to treat them holistically, from Osmosis Skincare, today we welcome Dr. Ben Johnson. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Ben Johnson. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a very big pleasure to have you on our podcast today. I'm super excited, and I think all of our listeners are going to be extremely excited because you are renowned in your industry for having and owning more than one skincare brand, but more recently, Osmosis Skincare has just exploded in Australia. And we now have the privilege to talk to you all about your skincare brand, but also all about you. I'd love to start this podcast off by asking you, how did you get into the beauty and aesthetic industry?
Well, once again, thanks for the interest. Yeah, I am. It was kind of a whirlwind in the beginning because I was training to be a sports medicine doc in Colorado. Found out about the first lasers for hair removal were approved, and I've just always been an entrepreneurial spirit. My dad was a physician, and he owned a business as well, and so I started a clinic while I was still in training to be a sports medicine doc. And then about 6 months into that, my residency, I guess I didn't realize I needed to tell them I had a couple things going on. And they're like, well, you can't do both. And I just leaped, and so I ended up, because of a few years of residency, I'm a general practitioner by definition. So I launched off into that world of aesthetics clinics. And my vision was, I'm going to open one all around the country, and so I started really quickly. I opened 6 clinics in 6 months in 4 states, ended up at before it all collapsed on me. I had 8 clinics in 4 states. I'd hired friends and family. I made all these crazy mistakes, one of which was, and actually a really interesting one, because as we get deeper into skincare, you're going to realize one of the things that is a big turnoff to me is just there's a bit of a car salesman-y approach in the skincare world. It's a lot of marketing, really heavy in the marketing and not so much in the substance. And so my first experience in that was literally being shown or told that this laser hair removal machine that just got FDA approval would kill the hair in 3 visits, and it would be gone permanently. And so I guaranteed that to all my clients and patients. I'm like, hey, Listen, I know this is new to you, so a lifetime guarantee on your laser hair removal.
Wow.
And that, by the time I had my 8 clinics, I had 20 machines. I had all my rooms filled with free visits because, of course, hair removal takes longer, especially in the old equipment that was there 25 years ago. And so that quickly cycled down for me. But in my, again, entrepreneurial spirit, I founded Cosmetics, which is actually the name of my clinics at the time, and just quickly learned that I had a passion for formulating. I was an effective speaker. There weren't at the time, this is again 25 years ago, there just weren't a lot of, first of all, non-plastics, non-derms in the industry. Now it's pretty common to see it. But also at the time, there weren't a lot of physicians going out speaking about formulations directly to estheticians. I really found them to be open to my new ideas more so than like talking with a dermatologist. And as it turned out, dermatologists won't necessarily listen to a general practitioner as much as they'll listen to another dermatologist. So it was just a fascinating sort of direction. I was always in the professional medical space, but formulated that, brought in the wrong partner and ended up selling my interest in cosmetics. And then I had about a year where I was, and by the way, but way back in the day, like I visited Australia. Some of your listeners may have like heard me talk 25 years ago on my days at Cosmetics. So anyway, one of the things that happened to me when I got done, because listen, I always teach passionately, and I just talked to you about, it's important to be genuine in this industry and to stand behind what you say. And one of the things that I was always standing behind was the ingredients I was using at the time were creating real changes in the skin. And but I was teaching things that were the same stuff we learn in medical school, that the clinicians learn in aesthetic school. And that is, sort of the classic model of acne is caused by a bacterial infection, rosacea is caused by a mite, pigmentation is the result of a melanocyte gone rogue, none of which I believe today. So we can talk about that journey, but to just kind of put a summary to the story, I was looking at my own skin, and I guess 25 years ago, so I'm 56, so, 31. And I noticed that my aging skin had not improved on the retinol that I was using, on the ingredients that I was using. And again, back then as well, it was a big antioxidant focus. And I teach today that's such a much more minority part of and so I started to just evaluate what was wrong with formulations today. And I ended up sort of conceptualizing what became Osmosis, this idea of a holistic approach where trauma is not part of the picture. An idea where absorption of molecules is one of the most critical pieces of the story. So delivery systems had to be at the top of the list of an ingredient choice. And the idea of combining, everyone would like to believe there's a magic bullet in skincare. It is not. It is it's a group effort. Your skin is the aging process of your skin is has powerful momentum, let's say, especially in this toxic world. And so to overcome that, you need a small army of holistic fighting agents to fight the battle. And so anyway, I started formulating then, and then the crazy part of the journey for me, and I do take some pride in this, because as physicians, boy, I'm telling you what, medical school is all about training you how to write a prescription. And it's all about treating the symptom and not the cause. And so I really had to break out of that mold and go to this place where it's, what is the source of this? And where are we being exposed, or what's happening in the body that is changed that causes someone to develop rosacea, for example. And so throughout that journey, all of a sudden now I'm looking at wellness in a whole new light. And so then I really became an expert in wellness and what I like to call targeted wellness, because I'm not just a big proponent of, take an antioxidant, a multivitamin, and a probiotic. I'm almost the opposite of that, as we might get into. And so that's where, osmosis is today. So every day in my class, we were talking, I had a class here in Australia, in Melbourne, over the past couple of days. And so I'm always learning. I'm always wanting to find the next best solution, improve what I have. I'm not a big believer in every year or two coming out with a new range with an emphasis on C or AHAs, or right. That's the marketing part of this industry that I think needs to die off. I'm all about, listen, there's only so much your skin can absorb. If there are new exciting ingredients that I come across, I'm going to add them to what I already have. And we can get in a little bit more about the details of the formulas, but that's why I think osmosis has had so much momentum lately, is because we are pushing the boundaries of the way people should think about their skin, and how much, like, I believe we can create, and I know we are creating permanent changes in the skin. And there just aren't very many brands that are saying that, or are capable of that right now.
I could just listen to you talk all day, and I'm sure our listeners feel the exact same way. I have picked up quite a few key words, and that is trauma.
Yeah.
Not creating trauma, treating from a holistic global approach, wellness, creating permanent changes in the skin, your skincare philosophy of, look, I'm not just going to come out with another product for the sake of, I'm going to incorporate or maybe change up my formulas to include new, exciting, effective ingredients. And I love most of all what you said about ingredients working in concert with each other, rather than maybe mega dosing of vitamin C, or, one particular ingredient, calling that your hero. How they work symbiotically together to affect the skin permanently and through long-term use in the correct way. Can you tell us a little bit about, just circling back to that antioxidant and that kind of working in concert, the ingredients? Tell us a little bit about why you and how you figured that one out, because not many people have switched on to that yet.
Well, because I'm, I usually come at things with my MD hat on and not my formulator hat on. I was looking at the literature, and one of the first things that struck me is I came across an article where they were testing high dose resveratrol on children with leukemia, and they had to stop the study because it was killing the kids faster. They were dying, and I was exploring that in my mind. I'm like, what is that? And then it wasn't, but maybe I think a decade ago, a massive study came out on megadosing vitamin C and vitamin E.
I was hoping you'd quote that study.
Yes, and
you're my kind of guy. I love this.
Listen, it was mostly negative outcomes for those people, and everyone scratching their heads. They're like, "What's going on?" And I'll tell you the reason why this is true, and why it drives my philosophy today. And that's essentially this: that your body does have a significant number of free radical activities going on every second of the day. And all of those, and while we like to demonize free radicals, the truth is 99.9999% of those free radicals are simply driving chemical reactions your body lives off of. They are critical to how your immune cells fight viruses. That's a free radical in the natural killer cells and other cells that literally takes a virus out with an oxygen-free radical. And so I believe leukemia is caused by a virus. And what was happening in that study, and what's happening for people who megadose, is they are suppressing their immune system. Let me tell you, I was telling the class the other day, we live in an upside down world. The amount of irony in the things we take, like, what does everyone do when they get sick? They go take vitamin C in high doses. And I'm like, no. What does everyone do when they get a fever? They go take a Motrin or a Tylenol to reduce their fever, when their body is intuitively saying, high temperatures help me kill this virus. So it's a wild ride when you flip that switch and you start just looking at everything from that slightly different perspective. And so in the case of skincare, there's no question, if you're out in the sun a fair bit, you are going to have more free radicals. Those free radicals are going to cause aging, and antioxidants play a nice role in it. But the one thing that I think I do more than a lot of people is I give so much credit to the inherent brilliance and power of the skin itself. And a lot of people don't realize that glutathione is a 3-chain peptide. Catalase and superoxide dismutase. These are antioxidants your skin carries naturally to fight those free radicals. This is why you can be in the sun for 10, 15 minutes. I don't know so much with you guys in your ozone layer, but generally 10 to 15 minutes, without harming your skin. I'm a believer in small doses of sun exposure because vitamin D is so critical to the health of your body. So what I'm saying is there's already a base in there. And while it's true that if you're going throughout a day, and let's say, for example, you're a stressed out person, the stress, the energy of stress, which maybe we even go dive that deep today, but energy of stress, the thought of stress is a frequency pattern that hurts and causes free radical activity in the body. And so, antioxidants do make sense there, but again, always in moderation, because you're not going to be able to guess the precise amount that would just squelch the bad guys enough, but not harm the good guys in the process. And so for me in skincare, I don't emphasize the antioxidant story. Let me tell you this, antioxidants are not going to reverse aging, right? They're going to slow aging, if anything. And so I'm all about age reversal. Let's up the game, let's set the bar a little higher. And maybe a lot of people have already subscribed to the idea that that's not possible, but I am here to tell you, we know you can, but I'm looking at a 20-something who tells me she's 30 years older than that. So I'm telling you it's possible. But anyway,
It is.
Yes. So it's a delicate balance of how much you feed the process in the skin and how much you let the skin do its job.
Well said. And the concept of age reversal, I always wonder to myself, we spend billions and billions of dollars and have over, I don't know, all of our history as humans to learn how to fly, to have this amazing technology, but how much have we really put into reversing age-related disease or reversing cellular age? Right. For that matter. I mean, Dr. David Sinclair, his Australian guy, I was very interested in his research way back, of course, with the sirtuin genes and reversing age in that way. But there's so many different ways that we can actually look at this problem. And you said something so profound, which I love, and that is looking at it in a holistic way and looking at it from a wellness perspective. Because, of course, one part of the formula, one part of the equation doesn't really take care of the bigger picture. So tell us a little bit about what you mean by treating holistically, what you mean by wellness, and how you incorporate that actually into your brand philosophy and formulations.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few stories to go on there. Let me just say this, and I apologize if this is offensive to anybody, but I've listened to a bit of Dr. Sinclair's message, and I don't like one particular thing that he has said.
Okay, hit us. We love some controversy here.
Okay, good. He tells people to take the drug metformin. That's a poison. It literally, in one of his talks, he admits that it literally poisons the mitochondria of the cell. Now, you have mitochondria in just about every cell in your body. You have 100 trillion cells. And his argument for it is, if you poison that cell, your body will make a fresh new mitochondria. I mean, that to me is like saying, hey, take chemotherapy because all the cells that die from that, you're going to get some new ones after it. Like that, I'm telling you that message doesn't work. If you listen to him, he'll say, oh yeah, I can only take it 2 or 3 times a week because it really makes me feel bad. I'm like, hello, your body's talking to you, Dr. Sinclair. That made me sort of step back on a lot of the stuff. I'm not going to go into some other things, but I will just say that message on metformin, please do not listen to that message. Please do not take that drug. I have a forum of thousands of people that I help on a daily basis. And that drug flags a lot of times as creating not only liver spots, but I skin map. So I learned like what your skin shows. It tells us a lot about which organs are being damaged. And so, for example, puffiness of the lower eyelids is kidney damage. And metformin has, on a number of occasions, been the cause of less puffiness, but actually kidney dark circles. So it's literally wounding this kidney in a sort of a nasty chronic way. I don't mean to even make light of it. It's a horrible thing, but it also wounds the liver. And of course, it's wounding all your cells. And I just hate that drug. And it's prescribed like candy. It's kind of like today, Accutane is prescribed like candy. and that's chemotherapy as well. It's just absolutely poisonous to the body. And people make such light of it because your body's so amazing. It can take these hits and not show you the signs of it for the most part. And so we don't often know, our intuition gets blinded by the fact that we just trust what the medical doctors, the medical system is telling us. And there's just way too much trust in the current pharmaceutical based system, I'm afraid. And I want to make sure this podcast stays up. So we'll just stop there. But
well, it's beautiful to hear,
okay.
that what's important is we are a forum for discussion, and we don't shy away from other opinions. And I think it's important to hear the gamut of opinions. So, just to know that you have thought about this, how you have researched this, it's of value to all of our listeners. And then obviously everyone can go up and make up their own mind. But I think it's important to have those conversations and to see, more importantly, how that contrasts with how one theory contrasts with your theory. And that's really what I want to focus on, which is that wellness. Because everyone's excited about that. Everyone is. And this is why Osmosis in particular excites me so much as a brand, because every time I look into a formulation, or every time I look into a piece of literature that you put out, I can see the intelligence in there. I can see the logic. It's like a light bulb goes off every time I look or listen to you speaking. And I really want to touch on that wellness part. How did you incorporate that into your skincare?
It started early. So Osmosis was founded in 2007, and it was probably somewhere around early 2009 that I began the journey into wellness. But it was pretty crazy that it wasn't part of my original idea. And that just shows you that you have to be open to evolution. But to be fair, let's go back a hot second to the holistic question you asked, because I totally bounced off it onto a discussion of something else. And I want to tell you why holistic's important. So we use the term holistic medical because a lot of times people hear holistic and they think of fluffy facials and gentle formulas and lavender and rose petals. And
don't they just?
That is not my version of holistic. So holistic has a lot of applications. One is holistic means you're looking at the whole body, because it turns out most skin conditions come from the inside. They're not even surface level. The doctors might tell you your eczema is some local reaction at the skin level. It is not. And I know this because we have a 99% success rate with eczema and treating yeast. Yeast is the cause of just about every eczema case out there. But also holistic means not harming. Right. So you have to make sure that every ingredient, and I have like one or two products that have dimethicone in them. I'm not a fan of dimethicone, but I make sure not to use so much that it would be occlusive on the skin and then it would be harmful. And I know that it's big enough that it's not penetrating and any sort of artificial presence in the skin. So, when I say holistic, I abandoned I think I have a couple of organic products, but I abandoned organic because the restrictions on formulating were just too harsh for age reversal to happen. They have this limit on 5% of the ingredients, and oh, by the way, they have to be an ingredient in a list of ingredients. And if you look at my formulas, you'll know I'm a big fan of things that most people have never heard of, and so I didn't want to be tied to that restriction, and so I abandoned that. So I think of us as natural, but natural in skincare is oversold. A full disclosure, like when you get your vitamin C, it wasn't just squeezed from an orange. It was made in a lab. And so there's a lot of what we call biomimetic ingredients out there. And that's just fine. Sometimes they're less stable, but they do the job. The skin receives them. They're clearly functional. But natural is just always going to be a bit of a stretch. And then we use some, added ingredients that, again, aren't harming the skin, make the formula perform, keep it in solution, right? Keep it from separating and all those things. So there's some of those must adds. I would love it was just a straight bunch of plant extracts and some phosphatidylcholine and water. But no, there has to be a little bit more than that, and everything has to have a preservative system. So all of that is another form of holistic, a non-trauma, non-toxic formula And then holistic in that it works with the body. So, and that's really where your question was targeted. And what I would say to that is, in my journey, I have learned what a lot of the different actual causes of skin conditions are. And we can quickly go through those. I know we only have an hour and would probably have to be an all-day podcast, but let's just go with aging. So the number one cause of aging skin is a decline of circulation. And that happens around age 25, just like we always talk about how collagen starts thinning at age 25. And why does collagen start underperforming at age 25? Because you have less circulation. We talk about the lack of growth factors starting around that time. And why do we have fewer growth factors? Because of lack of circulation. Why does the wound healing slow down? Well, the other really interesting one that a lot of estheticians haven't, I think, thought much about, and I was really struggling with it in the beginning because this idea of exfoliation, of course, is, you're either a pro exfoliation or you're
Yes.
I'm glad the movement is growing on my side, which is no forced exfoliation. But just know we're all sitting around right now and our skin's exfoliating naturally. And the only question is it exfoliating at the sort of predetermined happy amount of 30 days for your entire epidermis to turn over, or is it going slower than that? And what determines how fast you exfoliate is how much circulation you have in your skin. And so when we talk about, is your skin slowed down to a 40-day turnover cycle? I can do the math for you. If you lose 1% of your circulation every year and you go to 25 to 50, you now have 25% less circulation in your skin at 50. And then you would say, okay, the epidermis has to gather the goodies from the dermal, layers and the circulation, feeds them up to the epidermis. There's no blood flow in the epidermis of its own. And so that process of gathering and feeding the epidermis is wholly dependent on the circulation. So when it's short of nutrients, it's going to slow down to make sure you don't have holes in your barrier. It's going to slow down so that it is a complete and healthy barrier. And so it's doing it the same way. If you were to starve the rest of your body, you'll notice that a lot of the activities start shutting down to make sure the critical activities keep going. So your body moves into this mode of conservation very intentionally. And so the idea that we would then go in and say, oh, you've slowed down skin, let me burn off the top of your protective barrier that you just spent 30 days building and force you to go faster. And because it will, right? It will, because the skin sees that as an emergency. It knows that an intact barrier, it keeps you from infection, dehydration, and I guess more, I don't think it's as caught up in aging as we would like it to believe, but it's mainly survival mode, right? And so it's like, whoa, intact barrier, critical to survivability. So we're going to replace what you just took off, and we want to do it in a hurry. We don't like that it's exposed. And so you do cause the skin to rush. But what people have to get into their brain is when you rush the dermis is going to do less maintenance on those collagen layers that are the critical aging collagen layers of the skin. You only have so many fibroblasts. Those fibroblasts are going to have to redirect to rebuild whatever collagen is needed in that epidermal repair process. And everyone's like, well, yeah, but we want to make the epidermis young too. I'm like, how much younger than 30 days young? That's pretty young. You don't need to focus on that. So that's the concept of holistic, is recognizing that the skin is always operating intelligently. You don't need to wound it in order to make it act correctly. You need to identify where the shortages are. So a lot of my formulas, for example, focus on rebuilding blood vessels in the skin permanently. And that is, just something a lot of people don't think, I guess, is possible. I don't know. Like many of my ingredients have, clinical evidence that they cause new blood vessel formation,
Increasing circulation in the skin, and that is all in the body, really. That is something that honestly I haven't had many conversations about on this podcast or in the skincare world. It is mind-blowing that it is not talked about more. And it is just deviating slightly. One of the treatments, one of my most preferred treatments in my clinic is low-level laser therapy. Hence why it really helps to enhance and correct the, cellular function, but also it does help to increase circulation in the skin, which ironically is one of the reasons why people say to me, oh, how do you keep your skin so healthy and looking so young? Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, because I make sure that I have that circulation happening in the skin. Obviously I do it via treatments and a little bit via skincare, but your whole premise, well, not your whole premise, but a big part of your premise is doing it through skincare. Wow, mind blowing.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at LED, I used to subscribe to the idea that the fibroblast had some special little spot waiting for 692 nanometer wavelength to tickle it, tell it to make collagen, but that wasn't it. It's when you apply that wavelength of light heats up blood vessels, dilates the blood vessels, feeds the collagen making process. So even LED isn't about light therapy. It's really heat therapy. And honestly, I'm just talking myself into creating like an infrared heat mask that you just leave on your face for, and just let your skin heat up, and not too much, but enough
Not too much, no.
heating it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And just that mild heat, especially that comes from the laser part of it, not even the LED is great too. The low level laser part of it that stimulates that, hormesis in the skin. Like it just, the light bulbs are going off in my head now. I'd love to know which ingredients just give us a couple of little ingredient tidbits that do that in your formulas.
I'm just texting my employee. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make that. So thank you for helping inspire. So one of my favorites is chlorella. Chlorella, not an often used ingredient. Everyone knows it for its benefits taken internally. It actually has UVB protective qualities. It has, clinicals showing it stimulates collagen and elastin, but, no one really kind of got, well, how does it do that? But that's the other piece of it, is it stimulates new blood vessel formation. And so one of my absolute favorites, people don't realize, like, fibroblasts come and go. Like, fibroblasts don't just disappear from your skin because they get tired. Fibroblasts disappear from your skin because they're no longer have the rivers of blood flow needed for them to keep functioning. So they disappear because, like, what else am I going to do here? They don't just go that way. So rebuilding blood vessels has all these side benefits, more fibroblasts, more nutrients, more minerals and enzymes and peptides and cytokines. And so chlorella is one of my favorites.
Everyone deserves a skincare experience that not only promotes healthy skin, but inspires permanent results. This is Beauty Uncompromised. Over 12 years ago, innovative founder Ben Johnson, MD, created non-toxic skincare products and treatments that combine the purity of naturally sourced ingredients with revolutionary, doctor-developed and scientifically validated formulas that deliver on his promise of permanent change. Osmosis Beauty is revolutionizing skincare. Their patented, exclusive skincare and wellness technology holistically restores the skin's youthful appearance, producing exceptional results for aging, rosacea, and acne-prone skin. Their unique philosophy is based on analyzing the skin and body as a whole, treating skin concerns at the source to restore beauty and wellness. With this deep understanding, combined with clinical trials and before and after analysis, they are leading skincare into a whole new paradigm. How can Osmosis benefit your business? To learn more, visit www.osmosisskincare.com.au today.
Retinaldehyde, when you study the vitamin A's, A has got they've studied the gene activation sequences that it triggers, and they're fantastic. And so retinaldehyde has its own I guess it's probably more direct than indirect. I was going to say indirect, but a vascular stimulating quality to it. And then we'll go into the stem cell fibroblast growth factor world, and you can talk about things like vascular endothelial growth factor. That is really only something you can do by farming stem cells and fibroblasts and extracting their growth factors that they make. Then there's a handful of like hepatocyte growth factor, believe it or not, works on the skin as well, all in this effort to rebuild the blood vessels of the skin. So pathways are fascinating. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I bet some of the listeners are going, oh, whoa, Dr. Johnson, that's dangerous territory, because one of the things we know about cancer cells is they also have blood vessel stimulating growth factors. And what about the risk of, potentiating skin cancer from this strategy? And what I would tell you is, if you keep the skin's immune system at a high functioning level, it's going to do the same job it always did. It's not like just because we're young. In fact, what do we know about our young skin? Tons of blood flow, no cancer, right? For the most part, right? A few exceptions, but tons of blood flow, no cancer. So we know blood flow on its own is not the problem. The problem is an imbalance. And where in skincare we saw this was with FGF, fibroblast growth factor, when they put it on, why do I think it's not FGF and it's one of the other growth factors? EGF, epidermal growth factor. Anyone who's listening to this who was in my class yesterday, I apologize. I just remembered now. So EGF, and there were these brands coming out with EGF as the skincare theme. And what they found is when you put EGF on the cancer cells, it makes them grow faster. So It's a dangerous little thing. Well, so we wanted to make sure with our stem cell fibroblast growth factor serum called Stem Factor, we wanted to make sure that it was safe. So we put it on malignant melanoma cells, the most dangerous of the skin cancer cells, and it slowed the progression of the cancer cells. And people might ask, well, how does that make sense? It's not a treatment for cancer. I wish it was that, but it does the opposite of making them more dangerous. And the answer is because stem cells also make cancer fighting growth factors. And they make a lot of them. And so the balance of presenting a full complement of growth factors as opposed to just putting EGF on your face makes all the difference in the world. And that's why it's safe.
Wow. And you have labs that you obviously work from and in. You do your own clinical testing, or do you send that out? Or
yeah, we independent testing, that's what people demand, and they should demand. So we always are doing independent testing, but that was a lab partner who did that testing on melanoma. That helped convince us that he was the right lab partner to work with. So yeah, it's not always our direct efforts on those.
Let's hop over to, you touch on skin concerns, obviously, throughout our discussion, and acne has been brought up a couple of times, and so has rosacea. Yeah. Let's dive into those skin concerns. You've got an interesting philosophy, of course, backed by science about acne. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes and no, backed by science, because if you read the literature on acne these days, they kind of started leaning more towards acne as an inflammatory condition and not an infectious condition. But they're always sort of falling back on two fallacies. And one is that the P. acnes bacteria starts gobbling up oil and starts procreating all over the place. And next thing you know, you're getting these semi-random spots in these places. And the reason why that's a fallacy, because that isn't actually the problem. There isn't an infection going on. But the other one that's really was fascinating to me is when I found the study that showed that there is no such thing as a sebum plug. There is no, the skin never actually fully plugs. There's no accumulation of oil. And as you know, like when we look at the skin of many of our acne clients, they're not oily. Oil is not a part of the picture at all. So what I learned was first I had to go to that point and go, okay, wait, if it's not that, then what is it? Why is it that most of the time when people get acne, it shows up on the same side of the face, but on two different sides of the face? Because think about it, if it were an infection, how bizarre is it that you got an infection over here and somehow you got an identically located infection in the opposite cheek or forehead or temple or what? That makes no sense. In fact, you would almost, if the odds makers were involved, they tell you that's a 1 in a million possibility that it would end up in an identical spot on the other side of the face when it's this random infection that just happened. So my point of the story is to say, if people put a little bit more logical reasoning behind it and quit just accepting what they're being told, because guess what? When it's an infection, the pharmaceutical company's having a prescription for you. And now you see where the bias starts showing up in all these studies. Is there's always a prescription behind it, an FDA plan of approval for something that makes our healthcare ridiculously expensive. So then I began to explore, okay, what's happening? I eventually started tying acne a lot to digestive activity. And then I realized at some point in the game, I can't even remember when I had my epiphany, but it's relatively early. Let's say it was like 2010, that Candida in the microbiome causes most acne on the face. So it's not a yeast infection of the face. It's a yeast infection of the gut. Yeast infections occur from a few stimuli. Dairy is a big one because it creates a mucus layer that promotes yeast. Fried food is a big one because it creates a mucus layer that promotes yeast. Sugar, of course, we all know, stimulates candida and yeast. And then progesterone, a little known subtle player in the game, is also a trigger for yeast. And this will explain for a lot of women why they start breaking out in that last week of their cycle, because progesterone's on the rise. And it also explains why women get yeast infections during pregnancy, because their progesterone's up high. And anyway, we could go deep on that, but just understand that when Candida turns into, let's just say, a negative version of itself, which is basically what happens in the presence of sugar and mucus, it releases toxins that go into the bloodstream. And for reasons that, we don't know, it goes to zones on the face based on what zone in the digestive tract the Candida is located. And so I've mapped the face accordingly, like the nose is the esophagus, the two sides of the nose are the small intestine, and then the large intestine is basically the outer cheeks, the forehead, and around the mouth. And so when you start looking at it from that perspective, it's really fun because you notice how many people come in with that pattern exactly. Like they've got candida in all those little spots. They're not getting acne in their eyes or right below their eyes. They're not, typically getting acne right under their nostrils because that's the stomach zone and there's no candida in your stomach. And so as a result of understanding that, I came up with a treatment for candida. And then I noticed that certain zones were still breaking out. It's like, why is this space on the face behaving differently? And the first one I noticed was where hormonal acne is. So that's the jawline. And so I was looking at what in their environment would be causing that and trying to figure out if the candida toxins are one. I assumed it was a toxin. So I kept looking for toxins, and I learned over time that it's preservatives in our foods that mimic estrogen. So we call them xenoestrogen.
Oh, wow. Yes, yes, of course.
And that's what comes out of your jawline acne. And the reason why we call it hormonal is because it usually shows up right after ovulation, and it shows up when estrogen peaks during that part of your cycle. And if you have it bad enough, it of course can be showing up all throughout the month. I'm just saying, I think it got its famous name of hormonal acne from that kind of behavior. And it is hormonal in the sense that these are hormone toxins coming out of the jawline. Well, then I kept going and I looked a little bit farther down than on the neck. And I was like, what's happening with these people on the neck? What's the common theme? And over time, I recognized that the biggest people struggling with acne on their neck were either eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, or they were on farms. And so I finally realized this was an estrogenic pesticide problem. So pesticides come out on the neck, both front and back. And if you have acne into the scalp, it's also coming out in the scalp. And then, like, this problem is coming up all over the place, and that is acne on the chest and back. And I kept trying to find the link on that and finally realized that was chlorine. Chlorine in our tap water is the #1 source of acne on the chest and back. So with all those realizations, I began formulating products that addressed, so basically bound and removed these toxins from the body. And the acne cleared when I did it. So I was like, oh, I must be right. And so I've had a lot of fun with that, because one of my favorite aspects of acne is empowering our clients and patients to be in control. Because how frustrating is it for them? They're like, I am eating so clean right now. Why is my face breaking out? Or I eat the same food as my brother or my friends and their skin's not breaking out. What's happening here? And, you just kind of have to walk them through. This is how you got here. Usually it's an accumulation. So you don't realize, even though you're eating the same foods now, you got a lot of exposure before this that maybe.
Absolutely.
Right? Maybe you had several rounds of antibiotics when you were younger for ear infections, which, by the way, ear infections caused by candida. And so now your gut is all compromised. And so, but now that they know this and that they can go, oh, I really do want to eat that ice cream, but I know that's going to give me acne, or I really do want, a little known cause of jawline acne is pea protein. So I'm oftentimes making sure that these people aren't supplementing pea protein, because 99% of pea protein out there has these toxins in it, which also cause cysts on the ovary, by the way. So then it got kind of crazy, because once I started going in, I was going source crazy, and I was like, well, what causes rashes under the armpits? Oh, wow. I learned that was mold. What about acne on the lower back? Mold. And then what causes psoriasis? Oh, it's a different form of candida. And seborrheic dermatitis, candida, sebaceous hyperplasia, candida. And there's so many strains of candida that each one puts a different toxin out that the skin reacts to in a different way. But the good news is I became so anti-candida in my approach. I really became up with good formulas. Like I invented the first ever mucus melt to melt the mucus out of your body, because you have
Is this an internal
Yes.
supplement?
Yes.
Sign me up.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Dr. Ben, you have having pea protein. I ordered organic pure pea protein. Of course, wanting to be on a health kick. Well, I think maybe have saved quite a few people from going down that path.
I feel for the companies because most companies don't know that these estrogenic toxins are there. And so, yeah, and you might have noticed and usually it's in pockets. No one can see us today, but it's in pockets just outside the center chin, sort of at a 9 o'clock to your mouth is the common zone for pea protein to show up, that toxin. And they don't list it on the label. I can't tell you to go to labels and read it, because, it's put apparently in pea protein somewhere in the process where they don't have to list. That's true thing about, by the way, most food preservatives are not listed on the label. I wish it was easy. So I have to give people a general guide, like, try not to eat food that has a long shelf life. Try not to eat fast food, because fast food is the reason. Fast food's a classic for causing people's skin to blow up everywhere, right? And that's because it's mucus forming, candida promoting, preservative laden food, some of the worst food in the world, right? So yeah, it's a fun journey, and I encourage people to go find, I think you can even Google osmosis skin mapping and pull up the images online and see how we identify the organs and where we identify the organs. What's another point? Oh, one of my favorite things to teach people about now is that blackheads are not dirt sebum things. It's mucus. And that's
things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to describe it, because they think they're just getting dirty somehow. And they'll come out of it like the listeners might do this amazing extraction, clear their skin all up, and they call them up the next day and like, it's back. All these blackheads are back. Like, what is going on? And the answer is, if you have mucus in your gut, and so your nose is your esophagus. So if you get mucus in your esophagus, you'll have blackheads on your nose. If you have mucus in your small intestine, you'll have blackheads on either side of your nose. And those are the most common zones for mucus accumulation. And those, as we know from extractions, we know those are the most common spots. And isn't it funny that in skincare, we use the term congested skin? And that means literally mucus is coming out through your pores. And we talk about the sinuses as being congested with mucus as well. So in our own way, we already knew the link, but I'm here to tell you it is a fact.
It's a lot of intuition as well. And I love the further back in the conversation, you were talking about we ignore our intuition.
Yeah.
And we go with what we're told. This can help you build muscle, and this can help you do this, and megadose this and megadose that. Intuitively, well, actually, our bodies are probably not supposed to consume all of that. But we still get misled down the garden path.
Look how our kids thrive. And I was trying to explain in the class yesterday, and I know this is going to come off and people are like, oh, that just can't be right. But we put so much attention on, you better get your daily serving of fruits or vegetables. But I'm here to tell you that the decent, I mean, it's definitely a benefit. The enzymes, the antioxidants, the amino acids. Yes. Okay. It's a nice product. We know that they can be healthy for the body, but if they're full of pesticides, you've got
Yes.
a net negative event happening. And so you're better off eating something that's, way more bland, like organic meat patty than a vegetable gourmet meal, if that vegetable gourmet meal is not organic. And so, that's a hard one for people to get their minds around. But I remind them, because I do have 4 kids, that our kids, as much as we didn't want it to happen, grew up on a lot of pizza and chicken fingers because they wouldn't eat anything else and you just wanted them to eat something. And yet they were thriving throughout all of that. Their body figured out how to extract what it needed from that. And so I just want to remind everybody, none of our kids needed all the vitamins and the supplements we think we need today. And it's an upside down world. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of an upside down world. Most magnesium is bad for your gut. And most people take magnesium to help their gut. It's an upside down world. So why is it bad for your gut? Because magnesium citrate causes mucus, and magnesium hydroxide causes liver damage. So magnesium hydroxide will cause liver spots. Liver spots are literally from liver damage. And magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide is super damaging to your microbiome. And the reason why people take them is because when you wound your microbiome, fluid happens. And what does fluid do? Well, it keeps the regularity going, but you're actually hurting your gut to make it more regular. And the long term, that's a net no-no. Another one that just drives me crazy is probiotics. So let me give you my 20-second take on that. When you're 0 to 2, the medical literature says is when your microbiome develops. And what's so crazy about it is they say it comes from the foods that you eat. So most people would say, well, if I'm breastfeeding, of course it comes from my mom's breast milk. Of course, there's going to be probiotics in my mom's milk, and there absolutely are probiotics in the mom's breast milk. However, your mom's microbiome is actually distinctly different than yours. So that makes no sense. And then all the women who couldn't breastfeed or chose not to breastfeed and put their kids on Enfamil and Gerber baby food, none of that stuff has any of the exotic bacteria that are in our microbiome. So my point is to say it didn't come from the food. Your microbiome comes from your DNA. Your DNA programs your bug population based on how you were designed from the ground up. And that makes the most sense, where our body is made up of a majority of bacteria and they all are functioning on our behalf. So there's no way you could just, you could almost call it random infection model is what the science proposes right now, that these random bugs that infected your body somehow aligned with each other and figured out how to make your system work as amazingly as it does. It's a silly concept when I say it that way, right? And so this idea of probiotics is a false idea. And in fact, clinical studies show that if you take probiotics versus taking nothing, you recover slower on probiotics after antibiotic therapy. So why did that show that? Because your bugs are very unique. They're not going to be found on a store shelf. I spent over a year trying to formulate, before I realized this concept, a probiotic therapy with all the research strains that they have out there, trying to figure out how I was going to convince the labs to give me those strains. And before I had the epiphany, I'm like, oh no, we can't do that. So prebiotic is the only way to make your gut health come back. And I have found that combination for us of sea buckthorn oil, seed, fruit, and pulp, a very specific combination, is the best prebiotic in the world. So, but my point is also to say that probiotics, people are taking them, trying to make their gut healthier, and they're actually making their gut less healthy.
Wow, Dr. Ben, you just blew my mind. I am definitely going to go off and do some research. I think a lot of the listeners today are probably sitting there going, what did he just say? What?
I know. Probiotics is like the staple of conversation today, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. I got another couple of questions for you. I want to know, we're talking about Osmosis Skincare. How did you come up with the name Osmosis? It's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know what the meaning was, but I'm trying. You were talking, and I'm like, I'm trying to extrapolate. It could mean so much.
Right. I mean, osmosis describes this movement between a concentrated zone or cellular area and to well, it's really the movement of fluid into a more concentrated zone. But
That's
the
right.
idea was that if I put a concentration of ingredients on the surfaces of skin, and we can speak for a second on that. My formulation philosophy is very different. And some people get taken aback when they first start using my serums because they're like, whoa, that is a bit colorful for me, you know, and oh, it's kind of tacky. Like, what's going on here? And the whole idea was you can only put so many serums on your face every morning and every night. Once you get past, in my mind, 3 serums, everything after that is got a very slim chance of working its way past all the other
Agreed.
materials to get to a place where it might penetrate. So understanding that, I focused the serums on what tolerances each of them had for having other ingredients around them, you know, which ones are water soluble, which ones were not. And I comprised basically the big 4. And I know I just said 3 serums, but the 4th serum is my very light, very like it only contains 600 different types of growth factors and cytokines. It's called stem factor. So you put that on first, and it doesn't really interfere with these other serums. And then my formulating model was, how many ingredients can I get in before the lab tells me there's not enough water for this to even stir in the bowl, you know? And so that's basically what I did, is I pushed the limit on the max amount of ingredients in each formula, and with no regard to, you know, the cost, to be honest, with no regard to the, you know, I was like, show me what this is going to look like. These are the ingredients that are perfectly work together. And we did have to do a couple reformulations, not going to lie. Like Catalyst is a crazy formula, but but that was the beginning of the concept. And it was simply that I have to try to get everything into a smaller amount of serums because I want people to have all of this. And if I could put it all into one bottle, I would have done that. But each of these have their own unique reactivity. And so between the 3, well, I guess between these 4, which for me are Stem Factor, Rescue, Renew, and Catalyst. So it's an A serum, a C serum, a growth factor serum, and then my patented trioxylane serum, which is the #1 seller in Australia. It's been a big hit, and you know, we probably don't have time today to talk about that, but anyway, so formulating that way allowed me to get the most out of your skin, and it actually makes it more affordable, because obviously, like if I split those 2 in half, you know, it doesn't work that way. You can, the more you can put into one bottle, the more affordable that collection of ingredients will be.
You obviously know, which is the meaningful part of it. And osmosis means, you know, the process of gradual or sort of unconscious assimilation of ideas and knowledge. So that's the other meaning of osmosis. And when you were speaking, I was gradually assimilating and opening my mind up to different concepts. So it's a very smart word to use for your skincare brand.
It is. I can't say when I first came up with it, that was the plan. It was the first plan. Plan was what it was more about the concentration, moving concentration of ingredients into the skin. And so the fact that it fits perfectly with where we've become and evolved to, just puts a smile on my face, actually.
Oh, it's your brand philosophy. I mean, over time it's developed, and it's a gradual learning, and then, you know, dissemination of those ideas into, you know, the industry and the public. And I think we're all better off for it. I know that I am, listening to you. Give us your thoughts on inflammation, also chronic uncontrolled inflammation versus normal needed inflammatory processes. How does inflammation factor into your philosophy, or does it at all?
Yeah. Listen, it's an upside down concept again. It's one of my favorite stories to tell, because when your listeners hear this, I think they're going to really appreciate it. And I want to start off by telling you that all inflammation is good. The analogy I'm going to start with, and then I'll explain where I'm coming from, is when you sprain your knee. in, let's say you're doing an athletic event and someone sprains their knee. The act of spraining the knee is a tear in the ligament. That is the trauma. The response that your knee gives is to send as much circulation of goodies as it possibly can to heal that tear in the ligament as fast as it can, but as complete as it can. Like, in other words, I'm going to give it the absolute best repair, and I'll do that as fast as I can, but I'm not going to rush it and compromise the best healing response. What we are told when we go to the doctor or, by our physiotherapist is, oh, you better ice that swollen knee because that's bad inflammation. And the same concept we talked about earlier, where it's like, oh, you got a fever, you better drop that fever down. That's bad. And the answer to that is your body is so intelligent that when trauma happens, it is doing an AI level. Now, we have all this AI conversation these days. Your cells are running on AI consciousness. Literally, there's a consciousness stream. My personal philosophy is this divine consciousness stream that your cells tap into, and they are running an AI. That's why they're so quick to respond to every new thing. If we talk about, the pandemic we recently had and the how well kids did when exposed to the virus. Why was that? Because when they had all the tools in their arsenal, the AI system goes, I've never seen this crazy virus before, disable it, and it does it brilliantly, right? And so, yes, it's true, as we get older, we lose some of those tools, and even though the AI wants to do something, it may not always be able to. But my point is to say, trust me when I say trust your body. And when your body swells up, it's swelling up because it wants to immobilize the area. Why does it want to immobilize your knee? Because if you move your knee with a tear, you're going to tear it more. It's so intelligent, everything about it. And we're like, oh, I can't walk. I need to really take some aspirin. Well, what does aspirin do? Aspirin interferes with the repair process, and so all these ideas of inflammation are wrong. And so then let's get to autoimmune disease is another one, like a chronic inflammatory disease. Let's say like fibromyalgia. Well, fibromyalgia is an accumulation of damage that results from a virus. It's called Epstein-Barr virus. And so is the inflammation the problem with fibromyalgia? No, it's actually repair activity. All inflammation is repair activity. And so what's happening is this virus is wreaking havoc in your muscles, maybe in your joints in this particular condition. And this is true in every process of the body. So let's go to the acne. The inflammation in acne that doctors want to inject with steroids or, give you some acid or steroid or antibiotic that suppress immune repair activity, which leads, everyone listen please, to more scarring. Acne is a potential scar in action. Anything you do to suppress the immune system is going to make a scar risk higher. And so that's really what you're trying to avoid most is I don't want any long-term, I don't want this acne lesion to haunt this client for the next 50 years of their life. So my point is to say, you want the process of repair to go on. When you're talking about acne, I want you to imagine that a little poison has been sent up to the skin to get rid of it through the follicle. It's like, you remember how we always learned skin is a detox organ? But they never ever told us when the skin was actually doing that detox. They don't remind us that every day through your sebum, through your follicles, through the shedding of your skin, sometimes you're literally shedding out the toxins. Your skin is a detox organ. So this toxin comes up to the follicle. The follicle's like, ooh, this one's kind of nasty on the way out. Let's do some work on it to make it, let's break it down. And so the process of breaking down that toxin, if there's enough toxins, looks like a big cyst. If there's not that many toxins, it looks like a little whitehead. And so that is inflammation by one person's viewpoint. By my viewpoint, it's a detoxification process. And so I don't want to interfere with it. I want to help accelerate it. And so that's where, that's a holistic perspective that it gives you another example of our osmosis philosophy.
Wow. I think there's more to say on this topic. So I am going to commit you to coming back.
Done deal.
Amazing. I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you and having our minds open to different concepts and philosophies. And you are right. You are a very effective speaker, very charming to listen to. And I'm sure that more and more listeners are going to check out your brand. So thank you so much again, Dr. Ben.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I think you guys have an amazing organization. I've already heard how you're even making inroads on the political side to give more power to the esthetician and to make them all better at their craft so that they play a more important role. So we're grateful for that you guys are around, and I really appreciate you having me today.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Beauty by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay connected.